Greetings, Internet, Facebook, family, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and this is your host, Oliver from the Half Measures Room.com website about staying sober using the 12-step program. And I'm not feeling so hot today. Got sick yesterday. Today's Thanksgiving. I like to send a welcome and keep in touch with people, especially on holidays. I know those of you who have issues with drinking and drug addiction, holidays can be a rough period of time. I know it's important to stick to your family, and if you don't have any immediate family, to be with your friends. Meeting places are very good about this. They usually have some kind of event going on, where it's like an eating meeting where people do potluck stuff, and after having a lunch or dinner or whatever, getting together for a speaker or to have discussions and talk, and just keeping together at this time is extremely important. So I always try to either write a blog or do a video log during the holidays. Because I'm not feeling well, it's not something that I was planning on doing. But the more I thought about it this morning, the more I realized it's something I really need to help contribute, because that's what Half Measures Room is all about. I have a lot of things that I was thinking about going over, but seeing as I'm not feeling too well, I'm still just gonna try my best to meet that 20-minute mark on the video log. Thinking of Thanksgiving as a holiday for thankfulness, giving thanks back. The history of Thanksgiving and why we celebrate it and everything, I think is key and important. Not having anything to do with religion, more about spirituality, I think is something to keep in mind for those of you that may be atheists or may not be Christian. This is not Christmas. This is a holiday for us here in America. That's where the holiday came from. And one tribe meeting another tribe and giving thanks for what they have, and sharing that meal together, and breaking bread with one another, and just keeping in contact and giving each other thanks. I think that's what's most important. I was talking to my kids about this. My kids, when it comes this time of year for Christmas, they're always talking about, I want this and I want that, and just give you this list. Even when they're younger, and 3, 4 to 6, 8 years of age, that's one thing. But when they get into their teenage years and they're still demanding this is what I want, this is what I'm expecting to get for Christmas, and they make this list. I had to remind them just recently, hey, this is a time of year we have Thanksgiving. It's a big holiday, but before Christmas, and that's what we really need to be focusing on is giving instead of taking. That's what this season is about. It's a season of giving rather than expecting and taking. And so money is real tight. I'm really things that I'm thankful for is I'm still being in a position where I'm at, still being able to carry on this message of spiritualness and sobriety and abstinence from what I used to look to change my point of view and my feelings and my thoughts. Now I look to other sources of power rather than these substances that just gave me an instant gratification. Now I look for other ways to do that, to remove those bad thoughts and feelings from my head. And, sometimes I can't remember who it was, if it was Bill Gates or Elon Musk. Somebody was saying that failure is inevitable, and it's actually can be a good thing. Failure, meeting difficulties in life and problems. It's actually a very important thing, because as we walk through those things, it provides us with experience for when subjects and issues come up in the future that are similar, we're able to meet them head on and walk through them rather than trying to ignore them or wash them away, which is what I did with drugs and alcohol. It was just like an instant thing, but it only lasts for so long. And after doing that for so many years and so many tries, the drugs and the alcohol stopped working. But by that time, I had become dependent upon them and needed them in order to feel normal and survive. You get these. It's no longer a mental wash. It's a physical and spiritual thing. I started doing things I didn't normally do in order to keep using the drugs and alcohol, and and then I would have these physical, the cravings, to overcome these physical liabilities. The jonesing for that next, drug or drink, and or waking up my stomach with hurt. I've got Crohn's disease. I didn't know this when I was a teenager, but to overcome these pains in my guts, I would drink and use drugs for that. I would wake up in the morning with shakes and dizziness, and I would drink or use drugs to help treat that. So it's not only just a mental obsession, but it's that physical craving and that spiritual thing. These things that I was doing to continue my behavior, whether I wanted to do them or not, I was doing them to keep feeding that need or that want for comfort and for that feeling of euphoria that I expected. But real life, excuse me, real life, has difficulties and problems that they need to be faced. And if I'm refusing to face them and I'm trying to look the other way, they just compound and they get worse. So being sober, in order to treat these problems, the best to communicate with those that I trust, that have been through things in the past and walk through them without having to ignore and use drugs and alcohol as a substitute for feeling better. Communicating with them, even if they can't provide me answers, just having someone listen to me and repeat back to me what I've said. Even if they don't have answers, they can at least be there to support me and to provide help. And just listening, I think, is important for me to speak to somebody. So that's what I'm thankful for, is having that network. Not only family. My family's going through a lot of stuff. I've got a brother that moved to another state. I have a sister that lives many miles away from here, and they're not going to be able to be here for Thanksgiving. It's just going to be me and my wife and my parents and my uncle. A lot smaller event than normal. And me and my wife have kids as well. They live with their others, and we kind of trade off. We'll have them Christmas morning one year, and the next year they'll have Christmas morning with their others. And Thanksgiving's kind of the same way. We'll get them in the morning, or we'll have them in the afternoon, depending on the year. Again, I'm just not feeling real good. I woke up sick yesterday morning, and sick again today. But I've been taking some medicine. I'm not running a temperature or anything. I thought maybe it was the flu, but it's not that. Just a runny nose, coughing a lot, throat hurts and stuff. But anyway, something I've been thinking about a lot is this stuff about spirituality. I've been writing a lot of blogs about that kind of stuff over this past couple years, and there's a book that I've been wanting to read for a while. It's called Varieties of Religious Experience by William James. It's talked about in some of our sobriety literature. It's nothing that's ever been quoted from, and it's a book I've always wanted to check out. I went to look on Kindle about that, because I've got some spirituality books on Kindle for my phone, and I just don't have a whole lot of money. But that book by William James it's only $1 on Kindle, so I went ahead and picked that up, and it comes with some illustrations and stuff. I really like that, and it's really neat. It's William James was a psychologist, very educated. Went to I think Yale or Harvard. Out to look. I haven't read the whole book yet. But the beginning of the book has nothing but these lectures, and then it goes into more detail about the points italicized and brought up as bullet points in these lectures. Another thing I really liked was in the pieces of lecture that he has at the beginning of the book. It's each sentence is separated by these hyphens, and it just illustrates each sentence as a point in the lecture. And that reminds me of how I write my blogs. I write with these 3 periods in between each sentence, and it's not only to highlight those individual sentences as their own message, but also I like numerology, and there's a trinity in the program of 12 steps. It's service, unity, and recovery. Service being helping others, which is kind of what we're talking about here with Thanksgiving, and unity is being together, like I talked about with the communication, and recovery, which is actually doing the steps that we do in the program in order to stay sober. And I also do it because of a Christian thing. There's a lot of numerology in Christianity. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The Father being God, the Son being Jesus Christ, our Savior, and the Holy Spirit, which is that which lives within us, that power, which I think I've talked about in that last blog that I wrote about my grandmother passing away, and how I was hoping that her spirit gets inclusive with mine, and that I feel her with me, even though she's not with us physically. It doesn't mean that she's not gone. She's always going to be here in the spiritual, maybe not the material, but in the spiritual. And those are the 2 things that I always try to look at. When I'm having a bad time, I think things are really bad. That's just material. It's temporary. Spiritual is always going to be here, no matter what's going on. It's how I feel inside that shows what happens on the out, what can really perform. And with the prayers and stuff I've been reading lately, I've really been trying to focus on where's my usefulness in this world. What part I can play. Not particularly what's expected of me to do, but what I can do. What I'm capable of. And because the more the bad thoughts and feelings and things that I demand, things that I feel like I deserve, crowd my mind, and I don't get them, then I get really upset. And I think it's more should be focusing on what I can do, what's available for me, what I can do to help others, and that's that big service part. So that's the reason I put the 3 dots in between each sentence. There's a number of different reasons. It's kind of the same reason why Half Measures Room itself, the name of it, has a number of different reasons for it. Some people don't like it that it's called Half Measures Room. It's because in our literature it talks about half measures availed us nothing. And for me, creating that name was originally it was because that's in our meeting place. They called that hallway or that main lobby area the Half Measures Room, and that's where people outside the meeting could talk, and even sometimes during the meeting. I think that's another reason why people don't like it so much is even during the meeting people will be hanging out in there and talking. Why aren't you in the meeting? Why are you out here talking? The meeting's going on. But for me, that was just a more comfortable place where I could talk to somebody. What do they call it? They call it crosstalk. You shouldn't crosstalk in meetings, but that's what the Half Measures Room was for. So you could crosstalk and you could talk to each other about what's going on. And I've really had some really good connections with people in the Half Measures Room. But I also like the name of it because if you're using the internet in order to stay sober, you are utilizing half measures. And if you want to maintain sobriety and keep sober day by day, that's something you're going to have to use your full measures for, and fully commit to it. They talk about the first step being the only one that can be used at 100%, but I really think you should put 100% of your efforts into all the steps, and that's really the best way to go about it. As much time and effort that you put into using drugs and alcohol, that's the least amount you should put into staying sober and keeping sober. Because for me, drugs and alcohol revolved around my whole life. Everything, was involved in getting loaded and staying loaded. And that's how sobriety should be for me. Everything I do in life should revolve around, how is Oliver going to stay sober? How is Oliver going to help others maintain their sobriety? I'm not a higher power or anything like that. I cannot play God. But there's ways that I can transmit his message to others, and be there to walk others through things that I've gone through in the past as well, and how I stay sober today, and just kind of transmit that. I'll talk about this a little bit, and then I'll move forward. But I've been going to this meeting called Back to Basics lately, and they talked about this two-way prayer, which is something my sponsor had me do. I'd never heard of before. I remember I was having a lot of issues with finances. I was unemployed and stuff like that. My sponsor was like, well, let's try this two-way prayer. And I was like, well, what is that? And, he said, well, I want you to get somewhere where it's quiet and think of a question to ask God. And once you have that question, I don't want you to start writing down whatever comes to your mind. He's like, and these will be answers from your higher power. This stuff that you've written down. And that's something they talked about in that Back to Basics meeting. And then they talked about a three-way prayer, which is where you've done the two-way prayer and you write these things down and you share them with somebody else, what you've written from your higher power, and it means something to them. It may not be exactly why that was written down for you, but it may mean something to them in another way. And that's another reason why I really like writing and blogging and sharing in meetings. I think it's kind of a three-way prayer, because I never heard the voice of God from the heavens. It's something I feel that's been transmitted to me through other people, and that's why I really like meetings, because I can hear His message through other people, and that to me is like a three-way prayer. Anyway, I'm getting close to the end here. I always like to read something when I do these video logs. So I'm gonna read a little something from this William James thing. I've always had a issue with spirituality. In fact, coming into the program. And working through the second and third steps is what really built my belief, because I've always been someone that wants something physical, something that's real, either hearing it or seeing it myself in order to believe that it's honestly something that exists. I've always just needed proof, not just reading from a book or something that somebody tells me. I always needed proof. So a higher power for me just began with nature. I just couldn't see how it was all a mistake, some Big Bang theory. Watermelons are these round striped colored objects, and you break them open and they're red inside with these black dots, and sweet fruit. How could that have been some mistake? And then these birds with these ornate colors, and they sing these beautiful songs. I was like, that's just can't be some accident, by collisions in the stars. I just don't see how that just seems like something that was created. It was creatively mastered. The insides of our bodies are these detailed, ornately designed mechanisms, and some of them still have not been explained yet. Our brains or some organs. They don't know why they're there. And that to me is way more detailed and creative, rather than just some oops, just happens. Cells and molecules got together, electrons and neurons, and it doesn't make any sense to me. And that's what I really liked about this William James book. Like I said, I haven't finished it yet, but I kind of go into a little more detail. It says something that we must study the extreme cases. Two ways of accepting the universe. Religion is more enthusiastic than philosophy. Its characteristic is enthusiasm and solemn emotion, its ability to overcome unhappiness. And I just love that. Need of such a faculty from the biological point of view. Just excellent. And some of this stuff I had to really look up definitions of some of these words, because it was written in the 20s, especially with this next piece I'm going to read. Some of it I still have not. I need to look at some of these definitions, but I think all in all, if you just listen to what I have said and connect it with what I'm about to read, I think you'll understand. It says, is religion a survival of primitive thought? Modern science rules out the concept of personality. Anthropomorphism, that's what I'm about to look up, and belief in the personal characterized pre-scientific thought. Personal forces are real. In spite of this, scientific objects are abstractions. Only individualized experiences are concrete. Religion holds by the concrete. And it goes on to talk, he talks about the stories in the Bible, or, the histories of people that wrote these books in the Bible, or histories and experiences that they've had. Whereas, science and philosophy and things like that are they're abstractions. What if this? What if that? We've found this, and we found this. In order to connect the two, this must happen. I'm not saying that science is a bunch of baloney, but as far as abstractions, abstract thought is a lot different than real world experience. But I've reached that 20-minute mark. I'm surprised I went on this long, not feeling as well as I do. I've just got one more thing, being in the spirit of giving. I think I've mentioned this before. I've got copies of collections of my blogs. I've got Notes, which is the first one. This is the stuff from the MySpace days when I first started Half Measures Room. And this one is duly notated, which is the copy of the stuff when I was doing the online radio show. And I've got these soft covers handy, and I'm willing to give these out for free, one of each. Just make sure you email me at halfmeasuresroom@yahoo.com if you're interested, and I can send you a copy. I've only got one of each, so the first people that send me the email, I have no problem sending you a copy for free to check it out. It's just the soft cover version, and it's something I tried to look me up on Kindle to see if you can get these books on Kindle, and I haven't seen that because I know Kindle would be a lot cheaper than buying the hard copy. So I'm gonna look more into that, and as soon as I find out more about getting these on Kindle, I'll let you know. And in the meantime, like I said, today is a day for family, giving thanks. And if you don't have family, please get to your nearest meeting place and get with your network and your friends, who you choose to call family. Even if you don't know people from the meeting, rather than sitting in your place drinking, I want you to get to a meeting instead of going to that house and getting loaded. I want you to get to that place. And it's not a religious thing; it's a spiritual thing. It's people getting together, and that's who also is going to be there. People that are much in the same need as you are, that don't have that biological family. They've got that spiritual family at their meeting place. And thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.